How are we doing? We're streaming? Yeah, we are. All right. It's another fine weekend. Pop out the chat. Crap, I just realised I haven't got my drink. Hello. Today, going to be drinking some Appleton's Estate signature Jamaican rum. With some classic Schweppes dry ginger ale. You should never drink your rum with Coke if you actually want to taste your rum, because all of the sugar in Coca-Cola will kill the taste of the rum. Yeah, I was transdimensionalized, that's right. So today, hello, hey Nathaniel, Findantu, Gold Two Slayer, Theros Bull, Robert, Lysander, Grant, Joshua, Moonring, Shakescan, Silver, Morgan, Mr. L, nice to see you, Kick-Ass Duke, Robert, James, Silver, play guitar for you. I can't play guitar. Well, I can play guitar, but I just can't, I don't know how to play a guitar properly. Hey, Adrianeth, Faith, Bright Glory, Dog, DJ, Sweden in November, yeah, exactly, yeah. Never-ending day, or never-ending night. Thanks, Kick-Ass. Looks like I'll be in my game for the stream, so I'll have fun and I'll catch you next week. Wish me luck in the battle pit we're fighting in today. Best of luck. Aaron Big, I'm good, thank you. When was the sanity challenging Halloween video dropping? It's already dropped. And oh yeah, hit the like button. Thanks everyone. Oh, nice. So yeah, today, I don't know if you could see the thumbnail for this video, but it's a squadron of dragons that have got sort of cages on around the head, and they've got heavy machine gun type, railgun type things, and the riders dive bombing some location and blowing the hell out of it with modern weapons. And those of you who played Rifts, you would know that you can play a dragon hatchling as a player character. Watch Fenna Rob videos and you'll be playing guitar like a beetle. I don't really want to play guitar, because lots of people play guitar and they will always play a guitar better than me. Just what we needed, dragons with railguns. Yeah, exactly. Does Sigil contain portals to the Far Realm? It must do, right? Because it contains portals to everywhere. You want a ring of anti-magic cannonballs shrunk magically and a musket. That works. Hey, Pale Rider. So today we're talking about Transdimensional Dungeons and Dragons. The ability for your game to go anywhere. And this is one of the things that like with all the controversy with new settings or rehashing of old settings and things like that, the question could be raised: do we really need like Spelljammer and things like that when portal magic and the ability to just step through a portal and go from one location to another really countermand it? I mean, do we need all of the expense and effort of going through wild space when you can just take a portal from one place to another? Glorious multiverse, that's right. Everything's chill until the dragons get railguns. You're picturing a beetle playing a guitar with its feelers. I thought November was no D&D this year. Nope, it's not just D&D. So I'm also talking about Dungeons & Dragons, but I'm also talking about Rifts right now. And also, Portal Jammer, exactly. And also Warhammer 40k. What if you went into wild spaces, it was effectively the warp. Hey, Tinsu. I like the idea of travelling through a nightmarish abyss, essentially, to get from one location to another. Does Sigil contain portals to Texas? Well, I don't know if it's Texas specifically, but you can certainly go to Earth. Me and a friend derailed descent into Avernus. Got any tips for what to do in space? Well, essentially there's a bunch of different locations you can go to, like the Rock of Brow, and there's various like asteroid things. The theme of Spelljammer is that it's a fantasy space, so it's not like hard vacuum. You have bubbles of air that exist around people, and rocks, asteroids and things can collect their own atmosphere. The atmosphere may eventually become toxic if it's not like refreshed through magic or through plants and things growing there. But yeah. You'd like to see Spelljammer just added to Planescape as a travel option. Yeah, that's essentially what D&D 5th edition is. It's always kind of been stated that that Spelljammer and Planescape is the default background cosmology of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Because we see that mentioned in the Dungeon Master's Guide and things like that. Best way to think of Spelljammering is to watch Treasure Planet. Yeah, exactly. The liquor coming out. Yeah, everybody join me in a drink. Because I don't know if anybody of you have noticed, but the demographic of my channel is over the drinking age. Only like, 7% or less of the viewers are below the age of drinking. So yeah, get your liquor on. This is not a kids role-playing channel. I'm speaking to adults. I'll certainly drink one for you, Lysander. You're part of the 7%? Oh, nice to see you in here. Yeah, I'm curious about that as well, Aaron. What did you do to derail descent into Avernus? You can't drink right now, you're shaving. Are the old crafting videos? Yeah, they're still there. I still do crafting. I'm still getting around to painting Piercer and Roper. I've got to do all the little flowers and stuff on Pierce's shirt, and Roper's coming along. Roper's not as interesting as Piercer because he doesn't wear any clothes. He's just, about the most interesting thing is the green shades of his beard, his moustache. Thanks, Goldtooth. And a reminder to everybody, this is a monetized super chat enabled channel. Hey AJ, happy to finally make it up to one of your streams again. Also, what's the tabletop game that you're speaking of? I believe you said it was Rift, or was that Dungeons and Dragons things? Yeah, Rifts, Palladium books, and Rifts. So I don't actually think I have the Rifts main book out here. Here is the Heroes Unlimited 30th Anniversary Edition hardcover, and it's a game for superheroes. And the thing that really stands out with Palladium books is they have a lot of random roll tables, particularly Heroes Unlimited. It doesn't have, like, Earth is its setting, but it doesn't really have anything specific. It doesn't have a storyline. It's just you can roll up characters and stuff. They have a much more comprehensive skill system than Dungeons and Dragons. Like Dungeons and Dragons, that's your skill selection right there. And they all have detailed descriptions of what they do. Physical skills are how you develop your skills, your physical characteristics of your character. So when you train in gymnastics, for instance, you actually get bonuses to your attributes and stuff. The bionics section and things, you build your character with a budget. You can be experimented on. You can build super vehicles. You've got magical weapons. You've got spells and arcanism. You can be a wizard. You've got mutants. And all of the superpowers and things. You've got power armor, robots, everything that a growing boy needs. And Rifts essentially is the Palladium idea of a planet which is like Sigil in a sense. The ley lines and things which crisscross the planet and have natural energy flows, like the weave in Faerun, have exploded into superactivity due to cosmic forces and disaster. And they've broken open natural doorways to the multiverse, and creatures from all over the multiverse are flooded onto Rift's Earth. And the humanity is no longer alone on the planet and are fighting for their place. You don't think the Spelljammer Guild will standalone release, but might be added as an option into another book release, like how we're getting airship rules in the DMG or Ravenloft and Curse of Strahd? Yeah, probably. Well, we've got psychic powers, which are coming along with Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, finally. Me and my friend completed the few first parts and were about to be sent down, and then me and my friend decided to pull a few strings due to our background. In short, we ended up with a grand hell. A grand hell? Helm. Grand helm. So a spelljammer ship. Great. Any tips on running an ancient mage of good alignment? He's 1,000 years old, but he travelled to Mount Celestia for like 900 years of it and can just cast up to level 8 spells. On running them, well, if he's been in Celestia for quite some time, he's probably very deeply involved in celestial politics. Will Rifts become a fixture? Well, I'm a big fan of the Palladium books, and I played them for as long as I played D&D, so I'll always talk about Rifts. If people mention Rifts and want to talk about Rifts and ask for videos about specific things in Rifts, I will make those videos for people. You like ginger beer too? Hard apple cider. Nice. Currently working on a claustrophobic dwarven sea captain with a cockatrice as his pet. His name is Foe. Topic for the month: the games outside of D&D. Yeah. How did the vampires of Rifts take over Mexico? First of all, the reason why they are so at home in Mexico is because of the low rainfall. Running water damages vampires, and that includes rainwater and somebody with a squirty water pistol. The vampires are derived from a vampire intelligence, which is ancient alien beings, huge mounds of flesh that have tentacles and eyeballs and things. And essentially it's their spirit animating all these different corpses, which is very much they're a physical manifestation of Anne Rice's idea of what vampires are, and that all of the vampires, when they bite and pass on vampirism, they're passing on the spiritual entity inside them, which is the vampire spirit. Oh yeah, the VHS game Nightmare. That's a classic. Answer me! Yes, my gatekeeper. Back when gatekeeper didn't trigger everyone. So would you recommend the tabletop game to people that want to expand from Dungeons & Dragons, or would you recommend Pathfinder instead of a different tabletop game? I would say that Pathfinder is Dungeons & Dragons, and I don't get people who don't make that connection, because Pathfinder is just 3.5 edition rules, which have been progressed and further developed into 3.75 and then 3.75 edition 2. So it's still Dungeons and Dragons. Essentially what you're doing in Pathfinder is still playing Dungeons and Dragons. When you're sitting down at the table and saying what your decisions are and looking at your character sheet, if somebody walked past and didn't see the cover of those books, they would think you were playing D&D, because you are playing D&D. This is my point. So old school revival games, Pathfinder, low fantasy gaming, fantasy age, things like that, it's all Dungeons and Dragons. Essentially that's the setting that you're playing. Palladium is different, although it's got a fantasy role-playing game that you can play, which essentially you're still playing D&D, but you're using the fantasy setting, the rule set of Palladium. They have other stuff as well, such as superheroes games, ninjas and super spies, Beyond the Supernatural, post-apocalyptic Earth, mutant animals, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and of course Rifts, which is a kaleidoscope blender of everything. I wouldn't say I wrote for Palladium, I would say that I sent something into Palladium and they published it. Billions and billions, thank you. Have you ever played a successful fun meta aspect of the multiverse, i.e. PCs become aware of the players, realizing they're minis on a board, traveling the real Earth, crushing the game session, etc.? No, I haven't done that. Good question though. No, I've never been particularly tempted to do that. Hey Pale Rider, I'm drinking Appleton's Estate rum with some dried ginger ale. He's been expelled from Celestia in order to make up for the last couple of sins during his time on Earth, and to help the party with a couple of very important quests. That's interesting, because my take on Celestia is that travelling up the mountain of Celestia, if you're a petitioner, not if you're a mortal person who's gone over there and is just visiting, because you're never going to be native to Celestia as a living being, as a non-divine being. So the petitioners deal with their progression of their soul and purging themselves of sins and getting closer and closer to the ideals of Celestia by accomplishing these tasks and things which are set, these adventures which they have travelling up the mountains of Celestia. So that's the whole point. So they wouldn't travel outside of Celestia to be tested. All of the testing of the soul is done in Celestia. That's the whole point. Rift's vampires are a very cool concept, and they're also extremely difficult to fight, and scary as hell, because the things have got instant regeneration and things like that. Hey Redrick. Hey Not a Dog. Hey Manny, love the work you do, AJ. Just wanted to ask about the current state of affairs in Sickle. Since the last time I checked was after the faction wars they underwent. Has anything changed since then? Not particularly. I like to play pre-faction wars era Sickle myself. Super Soaker is your only hope against the vampire menace. Yeah, it's true. And a railgun that shoots wooden shards. Cult Divinity Lost. Yeah, I actually really enjoyed the Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice They were quite good. What are some unique monsters of Rifts? Oh, dude. Okay. Let's see. Some of the more notable alien races that are involved in Rift's Earth are there's the Splugorth, which are alien intelligences, and they have these like chitin warriors and these slavers that travel on slave barges and blind warrior women. You've got Atlanteans who have returned to the Earth, and the Sunaj assassins. You've got, let's see, the Kitsune, which are these. Is it Kitsune? Which are these monkey super weapon inventors. You've got gargoyles and gargoyle kingdoms. You've got the vampires, of course. And there's a whole heap of different types of monsters and monstrous creatures. The Zytikix aliens as well, which are these insectoid swarms who are taking over the sections of the Earth as well. Hey William, you're finally DMing your first game. We're at intermission. Wish me luck. Have a good live stream. Best of luck, William. You'll do well, I'm sure. No problem. If you're dripping with sweat when a vampire tries to bite you, does it count as running water? No, unfortunately. Oozing is not running. Hey, thanks, Goldtooth. Well, okay, thank you for that information, but like I said, I'm just looking to expand into different games. Got any recommendations? I would say have a look at... if you want to do something like a modern type setting, look at Star Wars, like the D6 version of Star Wars. Look at some of the free RPG settings that are around from yesteryear. You can expand Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition rules into some really cool aspects as well. There's also Numenera for like a real hard science weird fantasy. I've been reading through Arcana of the Ancients, and I keep talking about it every live stream because it's really good. Let's see, what else am I looking at the moment? Obviously my attention is very much focused on Dungeons and Dragons, but I also read other stuff as well. Edge of the Empire is one that I've played a little bit of, but we had like a bad group experience that sort of soured it a little bit. I've never actually got to play Deathwatch for Warhammer 40k role-playing games. This is like, I've played the Dark Inquisition and Rogue Trader and really enjoyed those, and I wanted to get into Deathwatch because it's like it's sci-fi on steroids, real dark, gnarly, blowing everything up. Traveller is also really good. It's a classic role-playing game from a long time ago that's still alive and well. But there's all sorts of stuff. Call of Cthulhu, there's Ghostbusters games, all sorts of stuff. Do I consider Vampire Exarchitals real vampires? Yeah, for sure, they are. Oh, they sent him back to Earth to decide whether he would be a good aligned god? Oh, the mechanoids, yeah. The mechanoids are, Battlestar Galactica and the Cylons. That's basically the mechanoids. That's the mechanoid plot for the mechanoid role-playing game from Palladium. Yeah, I know Kitsune is Japanese for a fox spirit. It's a different thing in Rifts. They also have Kitsune as well. Oh, it's Kitane. Sorry, it's Kitane. Not Kitsune. Kitane. Exotarchitals is the universe's way to let you know that you really can't spell words. Yeah, it's complicated by the fact that it's those letters are supposed to be spoken in a South American way. So, ugh. What are the werewolves and other, if any, were creatures like in Rifts, and the differences from D&D and World of Darkness version? Well, the World of Darkness version it's an entirely different role-playing system, using those points of that you put towards a certain power or aspect that you can then. You've got a lot more narrative control over what your character can do. In Palladium, essentially, it's a bunch of supernatural abilities that the monster will have. And with werewolves, it's kind of like regeneration and strength and supernatural damage and stuff like that. Yeah, the original Star Wars RPG was D6. The current Star Wars RPG is a dice pool mechanic that I just don't like at all, because it plays havoc with your narrative control over the game. It forces complications on your game, whether you like it or not, essentially. Do I DM online? Yes, I'm just starting a game this week, actually. I've got another game which I've been playing in as well. These are bi-weekly games. What's a possible spy game in D&D? Well, you can do anything in Dungeons & Dragons. Essentially, that's narrative. There is Top Secret, which is an old style game which is more designed for like groups in public places and stuff to do it over like several weeks, where you leave notes and send notes to say to people saying they're assassinated and things. Were time elementals involved in the destruction of the Mind Flayer Empire? I don't have any details on that. Isn't Earth a canon place in D&D? Yep, it is. I remember Chris Perkins and Jeremy Crawford mentioned that Ed Greenwood wrote articles about a group of wizards meeting in his kitchen in Canada. Yeah. So Ed Greenwood always wrote the Forgotten Realms as a multiverse that crosses over between all the different realms of Dungeons & Dragons settings. But when Wizards of the Coast took over Dungeons & Dragons, they didn't want to have any of the complications of intellectual property owned by other authors that is not under their control being accessible and not supported in any of their game lines. So they curtailed that and sort of wrote it and like swept it under the carpet a little bit. So while it's implied in Forgotten Realms that you can travel over to Rift's Earth, to regular Earth, it's not really, you don't see it mentioned very often. And while I talk about it because of like the Amaskar Empire and the Mulan people from Faerun and the fact that they all came from Earth, it's, yeah. Think of the humans of humans kind of like the Tauri from like Stargate, right? So humans are all over the place. In Forgotten Realms, humans are one of the ancient races, so it's like they've always been on Faerun. Are they native to Faerun? Did they evolve there? We don't know. Will you do an update on the Yaunty? Well, maybe. I quite like my Yaunty video. What's the best monsters to eat? Probably Rothe. A were-lamb. I don't know. You never got your DM to DM Black Crusade? Yeah. I'd love to run like a squadron of Templars just going on an absolute rampage. Larson Hill Cavian. Like, I like a good beer and pretzels game where you kick down the spaceship bulkhead and blow the shit out of aliens. I like that. I've got no problem with that. But I also like, subtlety and stuff. I like a mix of things. Pale Rider. If Kryn was destroyed, but not the gods, where would Takesis go? Would Tiamat absorb her, or would she... well, you could say that Takesis is just another aspect of the divine entity of Tiamat. And, yeah. So I guess Tiamat would absorb Takesis. I don't play Fantasy Grounds at the moment. I use Roll20 in the game that's run by somebody else, and he does it really well. He does it with an extension add-on that allows you to use animated maps and things. And as for my game, it's mostly just going to be over Discord voice, and I don't know, might use Roll20 or something. Oh yeah, that's one of the recurring, Thomas, good point, recurring themes of Palladium is that Kevin Simbeda in particular would promise things, because he liked to talk up and his future plans and stuff, and it never seemed to get through his skull that he should never talk about things until they're a done deal, because at the moment you start talking about it to a fan or something like that, it's going to spread throughout the community and be like gospel. So if he mentions that he wants to do like a Mechanoid 3rd edition and he's got plans sitting on a table somewhere, but he never gets around to it, it deeply disappoints people, and he's never got that through his thick skull. So he's kind of he's a creative genius, but he's also his own worst enemy in that regard. And their record for that speaks for itself. So I'm not slandering the guy; it's true. It's still on the coming products list, I think, on the Palladium website. Run a full team of 5 barbarians and see what happens. Moonring, humans are the cockroaches of the D&D universe. We may well be the ancients of Stargate. Brandon, one of my best sessions of D&D was where I ran a cross-dimensional trap where the characters ran into alternate reality versions of themselves that were coming the other way because they're all entering the trap at the same time. Because one of the characters insulted his own trickster god that he was following by trying to trick the trickster god, and so the trickster god pulled a doozy of a trap on him. And if I hadn't really stepped in, that would have splintered the player character party, and they would have been... it was a very Rick and Morty situation where they were... Yeah, they would have ended up with not the original characters. They would have been alternate characters from different worlds that crossed over and stayed behind in one particular reality. The cave fishes are alcoholic, but yeah, they're supposed to be quite tasty morsels. Do you think we'll get any more Spelljammer stuff for 5th edition? Yeah, I think so. Tagline for Stargate: we have an idea for a cycle for series. Intro enemy, enemy wins, heroes find something, stop enemy, climactic conclusion, repeat. That could be said for most series, yeah. Star Trek was like that too. Like, what is it this time? Oh, it's the Xindi. Oh, what's next? That's the shapeshifters. Munchkin deep dive lore. Munchkin? Does Munchkin have lore? Who are the most worshipped gods? 3 most worshipped gods in the Forgotten Realms. Well, you could have Lathander, I suppose, Mystra. Corellian Lorathian's pretty heavily worshipped as well. Like nature gods and things like that. Moradin is heavily worshipped. So I'd say Lathander, Moradin, Corellian Lorathian, maybe. Cyanine Moonbow. Who's the real naturey one? Timora, of course. She's a halfling deity. Well, she's one of the halfling deities, but she's also widely worshipped as well. Of course, don't forget that these gods also have lots of different names when you go around the... like if you're in the Eastern Shire, they may worship the same gods with different names. So you'd recognize some elements of those gods, and those gods are picking up that worship just the same, whether it doesn't matter what you call them. You'd never been any higher than level 10 for D&D. Yeah, well, that confirms what a lot of people in surveys have said. DS9 and Voyager, yeah. She was killed by the king of the Silver Nesty Elves at the end of the War of Souls. I've really got to read up more on elven lore. They've had a pre-order option for Mechanoids expansion for over 2 decades on their website. Wow. Yeah, they've got orders pending for their Kickstarter for Robotech as well. Thanks, Rational Redneck. Just some more Tressum video motivation. Yeah, it's on my list of things to do this week. So pretty much as soon as this live stream is over, I'm going to be uploading... I'm going to be releasing the video that I uploaded for all the members, which is the Froghemoth. Let me just cross that off my list. So essentially, to round out the end of this year, I'm going to be crossing off a lot of fan requests. So we got my one, which I want to do for myself, which is Isgard, and starting on my guide to Faerun, and the video on the Laughing Worm. But we've got the Ixodzar Chittle and the Tressum coming up, and Demodans. So we've done the Yak Speak and the Froghemoth. Pretty good video on the Froghemoth, I thought. What we need is a video on Pugmire. Again, not really my forte. Chontia, yeah. Sylvanas, that's the one I'm thinking of. Could you ever see a D&D Total War now that Warhammer has been a massive success for that company? Well, Hammond, Warhammer is really an offshoot of the fact that the UK branch of D&D, as it was never supported by the American main company. So when Steve Jackson and those guys set up the Games Workshop, it was originally intended to be the branch of D&D for Europe, because it was very difficult to get things manufactured and sent around the world reliably back in those days. So the fact that they had to produce their own fantasy game, and that evolved into a tabletop wargaming science fiction game as well, is because of that break with Dungeons and Dragons in the first place. If Gary Gygax had decided to do something a little different, we would be playing a very different type of war game. So, interesting. In an alternate universe where Games Workshop stayed with Dungeons and Dragons, what would we be playing for our war games, I ask you? Do you have any opinions on the Modiphius 2D20 system for Dishonored, Star Trek Adventures, Conan, etc.? No, I don't, because I have no experience with that yet. But I'm definitely going to look it up. Star Trek Adventures and Conan. I can get behind those. What's Dishonored about? What's a Froghemoth? Oh, well, you're going to find out. Rhetoric, you're not wrong. It's basically the elven lore. Who's my favourite demon lord? Today, it's Orcus. Thanks, Rational Redneck. What was the podcast where the D&D creators talked about the god and orcs? I think you mentioned it a week or two or so ago. Yeah, if you go to Sages of the Forgotten Realms group on Facebook, you'll find it there. I think it's the Mages and Sages podcast, or Mages and Sages group, or some such. They're going to carry on doing those, though, and I will link those in the community chat on my channel. How's that? Because they're certainly worth getting behind, because there's so much good information there. What they were talking about there is forming the basis of one of my my videos coming up towards the end of this year. Warhammers and Dragons. I am well, Sahib, and I'm getting better and better by the minute. Michael, I'm sorry I didn't understand the second part of that question. Thanks for taking the time to answer questions. No problem, I enjoy it. Is there a particular way you like to handle pop so it's still fun for everyone? What do you mean by pop? Would you ever have your party fight a retriever? Yeah, for sure. No, it's not impossible to beat them. Since Demogorgon is the Lord of Chaos, why can't he give Ixadarchitl's hands? Why would he give them hands when he could give them telekinesis? So much better. You never have to wash your hands. PvP. How do I handle PvP? I don't really. I discourage PvP at the table. Unless that's what they want to do. But yeah, no, I don't mandate one person deciding they're going to fight somebody else's character, because quite often it's not a two-way street, and they don't want to actually. The other person doesn't want to fight them. If it's like two fighters trying to like test their might against each other, then they'll use like the flat of their swords and just fight for subdual damage and stuff like that. But actually trying to kill each other, nah, that sucks. Hey, Adriana, thank you. AJ, I'm curious, trying to come up with the most apocalyptic cat mount. Think Skeletor's mount from He-Man. I'm a sucker for a Doom Kitty. I would say get a dire tiger and actually ride inside the tiger's ribcage, because it's undead. That's a kick-ass kitty right there. Also be a lot smoother ride than riding on top of a cat that's running. Yeah, I can get behind the Conan RPG. Oh, yep, I've heard of All the Flesh Must Be Eaten. No, I haven't played Tenra. Oh, yeah. Ever look at foreign language D&D modules? I wish there were more. I honestly wish that there was more foreign input to Dungeons and Dragons, because it really needs it. I was talking with Taryn from Taryn, and we were talking about the future of Dungeons and Dragons, and the reason why I think Hasbro is having some difficulty with Dungeons and Dragons is because it's a game, but it's really a game for adults mostly. Like most of the existing audience for Dungeons and Dragons is an adult audience, young adult to old, like 40s, 30s, and they are not used to marketing things for that age group of people, and they don't really know how to talk to people like that, and they pay attention to social media and things like that, but that's an entirely different section of a much larger hobby community. And the people who have played Dungeons and Dragons for the longest period of time aren't necessarily on Twitter 24/7, and they're not involved in all these controversies and things. And so when they see these small vocal groups appearing to make changes to the game system, they get quite up in arms about it. Even though, and this is the double-edged sword, they don't support the latest games and stuff anyway, because they feel like they've already invested in all these books, and so they just carry on using those. So they don't really have a financial stake in the company, so the company is not really kowtowing to their wishes either, because why sell something to somebody who's not going to buy any of your products anyway? So even if they didn't put like all this social justice and social change and stuff and modification of like racial abilities and things like that into the game like they are at the moment, it wouldn't matter anyway. The sales would look exactly the same as they are either way. So yeah, it's an interesting conundrum that Hasbro was in. My vision of what the future of Dungeons and Dragons is going to be is it's going to shatter. They're going to have the core sort of system that isn't going to change dramatically much, but it is going to change dramatically the way that it is marketed to different groups of people. So you're going to have like sword lesbians adventures on this side. You're going to have Critical Role over here. You're going to have live action play and cosplay D&D over for conventions over here. You're going to have traditional sort of choose your own adventure and random roll tables for people who are just playing by themselves. You're going to have like game systems and things which are set up for online play, smooth transitions between electronic play and real life play, so you'll unlock content by playing a digital game and then play that content out in a tabletop game, and it'll inform both of them, things like that. So D&D will diversify, and Hasbro will finally click and say, okay, it's a hobby, it's not a community. It's a great number of different communities who all have a voice on what they want D&D to be, but you cannot cater to everyone with one system. One basic rule system to cover all of it, but you can't cover everybody's needs as a community with one product for the whole hobby. It just doesn't work. And the more they try it, the more it will fail, and the more outraged people will get. Hey, Sean. I got a little bit of experience with GURPS. I'm really looking forward to playing the Discworld RPG setting, which is GURPS. It's in my list over my stack of books over here. Thanks to Wall. Tunnel vision and advertising is something Hasbro has in spades. When I was younger, I worked for them. I remember the interview process involving me creating a commercial for children just to get the job. Yeah. So, they need to hire specifically people who know how to market to quite a diverse range of groups, essentially. And say, look, we can have Dungeons and Dragons My Little Pony. We can have Dungeons and Dragons Warriors of Sparta. We can have Dungeons and Dragons chainmail bikini clad bike of chicks from hell. We can have all of these different things catered to directly. The mass marketed media is always going to have some idea of what Dungeons and Dragons is, and they will try and pigeonhole it and bottleneck it and say, this is what Dungeons and Dragons is. We're going to sell this narrative of it to the general public. But the hobby is not like that. It's not one specific thing. It's a very diverse range of different enjoyment and entertainment. Robert, I just learned about a homebrew villain called the Tuba Archmage. What kind of stat sheet would an enemy like that have? You've just learned about it. I don't know anything about it. You'd have to inform me. Bikini clad biker chicks from hell, I'm sold. Yeah, me too, man. Exactly. I like the idea of a very... my D&D is very slapstick. It's very breakneck paced. It's not often very, very deep. There's a lot of fun and laughter involved, and there's also a lot of questionable shit that goes on because we're adults playing and we like to make questionable jokes about things because we do it in the privacy of our own Discord server. Like, nobody's judging anybody at the table for shit that their character gets up to in my games. If I was at a convention or something like that where I was being overheard by kids with, who look up to me as a role model and stuff, I'm not going to talk about a character having sex with a pineapple or something like that, or weird things like eating sentient creatures and stuff. That wouldn't come up, right? But in my home game, it's an entirely different kettle of fish. Hey, Frederick. Moonring, I'm not going to say that word one more time in this live stream, I swear. to all of the gods. Original Gears was messed up, didn't like playing it. Well, it's been around for a very long time, so obviously a lot of people did enjoy playing it. Same thing it could be said for Palladium. Michael, that's a good point. Wizards of the Coast should do what first edition D&D did and create basic D&D, currently available stuff, then release more crunchy advanced D&D. Essentially, that's what we have. I mean, the core books of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is all you really need to play, and those are free to the public, right? You can play a free version of Dungeons & Dragons. That's kind of like the basic version of D&D. If you want to get more complex, you would buy Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, Xanathar's Guide to Everything, Volo's Guide to Monsters, and you would expand upon it that way. Yeah, this is the thing, Ag. Like, people will play how they want to play, and their right to dictate how other people play stops as far at the edge of their skin or the confines of their house or gaming table. You can never dictate how the general public is going to play a game, and I would say there should be guidelines for like how you play in conventions and things like that. But the problem with Hasbro's narrative is it can't really get its head around saying Dungeons and Dragons can be whatever you want it to be. You can involve some really sick, gory, horrible, sexy stuff in Dungeons and Dragons. It's fine because adults play this game at home, but we would strongly encourage you to never involve those in conventions and things like that where it has not been like where anybody can sit down at that table, because these are adult themes and parents should have a say in what their children is exposed to entertainment wise, particularly with role-playing games, because it's hard-lined into the core imagination of people playing it, so it can be highly influential. And that's the real problem, is that Dungeons & Dragons can be problematic as fuck in your home, and that's fine, and people who play the game understand that that's fine. People can play D&D however they want, but Wizards of the Coast can't publicly acknowledge that and say you can play whatever sort of game you want to play with whatever moral compass you like, wherever it swings for you. That's how your game should be, and we will support you with monsters and character classes and things like that will allow you to do that. But yeah, where they're really forced to in public media is to swing in the other direction and say we will safeguard and pad this so that so it almost becomes impossible to play that sort of a game. So I think there needs to be a greater honesty for the people who are providing products to the hobby, really. That there is some problematic shit in D&D, and you know what? There always will be. And there's nothing that the parent company can do about it. And what's more, to the mainstream media, it's not the responsibility of the parent company to control what people do. Like, it's not like you're going to turn around to a gun manufacturing company and hold them responsible for people, shooting other people with their guns. No, it's just a tool. Dungeons & Dragons is just a tool. D&D is not inherently this or that. It just is what people do with it. The company is not responsible for what those people do with it. Yeah, conventions are rated E, not R. Wait, doesn't everyone sacrifice a goat when they play D&D? I love it. Do I have a role-playing pet peeve? Mine is saying a killer one-liner but not having the charisma roll to back it up. Oh yeah, that sucks. That truly sucks. Probably when you've put everything you have on that turn into one particular move and the dice just suck and you fail and you don't pull it off, and it's like, not only have I wasted my resources, but I've wasted my turn, and now I have to wait, like, to get around to me again. It's like I built my entire character around this one really cool thing that I can do, and the dice screwed me. That truly sucks. Hail, yupped up. Hail hurts when it's Mercury. Do I ever do character build videos of your campaigns? No, I don't. Like, at the moment, with getting close to 80,000 subscribers and a viewing audience of about 120,000 or so, no, I don't want to show how I play the game, because I think that would maybe influence people to play the game a specific way that I do. And I don't play the game in a traditional sort of way in many ways. I homebrew a lot of stuff. I like glib over other things. So yeah, maybe not. The closest you'll get to me campaign planning and things like that is when I do my podcasty things and I'm just talking into a microphone about a specific topic or another. Angry Garden Gnome. So here's the thing that I want to talk about, and I'll only mention this once because it's an interesting point, and it's one as a person who's a foreigner, right? I'm not involved in American politics in any direct way. It doesn't affect me, other than it affects the entire world and the economy and stuff. Like, it's in my vested interest that America does very well economically and socially, because that's where my bread is buttered, really. When it comes to like social justice warriors and things like that, and them like attacking people constantly, and it being like an outrage culture and stuff, it's sort of based around that, where you get notoriety and you get clicks and likes and things by, you know, being a victim or pointing out and attacking people. There's not a lot of forgiveness in that regard. Like, once somebody's branded as being something undesirable, they're basically burnt at the stake. It's a witch hunt, right? And the overall response to that from moderate people, like moderate Republicans or whatever, who are just trying to get by their life, is they'll gravitate to anybody who stands up for them and is against that. Unfortunately, that was a president like you just had. And somebody was pointing out, it was like a commentator who said that it's lucky, in a way, that Trump was so incompetent, and he telegraphed everything he was going to do on Twitter, and he's so, like, just a temper tantrum baby, right? But at some point, if it's not more moderate, and if there isn't more dialogue and forgiveness on both sides, that constant attacking and constant looking for, like, some reprieve from this, they're going to gravitate to somebody who is really good at manipulation, who is very secretive and sneaky, and essentially the whole system will turn into a dictatorship, like it almost damn did. So that's the scary thing. Gaming is exactly the same. It's a microcosm of that. So attacking people all the time and castigating them and throwing them out, or just like burning them, razing the ground and burning them at the stake, is just not going to work. It needs to be, and it always had to be, an informational dialogue that gets people on board with the right idea. It's not, this is the idea, and if you differ from it this in any way, you're going to be burnt to the ground. That's not going to work. You can't throw people to the wolves. It just doesn't work. Yes, I am about to finish, actually. I feel like I've been ranting a little bit too much, though, so we'll carry it on a little bit more. That's the other misconception as well. Dungeons and Dragons is not being retconned. So they're not finding all the old books and burning them in a pile and then reprinting them with woke politics in there. It's not happening. All of the old books still exist and are played. Original D&D is never going to change. It's always there for people to play however they want to play. Yeah. Stop associating social justice with cancel culture. That's a very good point as well. They're not the same thing. And cancel culture is reprehensible behavior. It's shitty, bullying behavior. And it needs to be pointed out for what it is, castigated, and thrown out of the fucking hobby by all of us. It's not, if it's not your community, you should point it out and say, look, we don't welcome that, because it's not including people, it's not fixing the situation, it's just breaking things for self-aggrandizement. It's selfish. Rum, everyone. Angry AJ. Why am I talking about it anyway? Because I want to. Because it came up in the conversation. And this has been my tack the entire way. I'm a moderate, right? I live in New Zealand. We're a centre-left and centre-right government country. We're social. We're aware. We have a very, very switched-on populace here, and we've got a very switched-on government. So when I get involved in conversations with Americans about this, they're very polarized, and they attack me for being moderate, for saying, hey man, there's got to be some forgiveness. There's got to be some dialogue here. You can't just throw somebody out of the hobby. It just doesn't work. Because this is somebody's life, this is their career, this is their supporting their family, you know. You've got to give them an opportunity to hear you and to change. That's the whole point. Aren't we trying to change things? I haven't got any more information about the Dragonlance book, so no, I'm not going to talk about it. It's a legal process, I guess. Thanks, Jonathan. This past week, I gave my players a homebrew spaceship where they have to manipulate rods and coins to move the ship. Nice. That's a good point, Not a Dog. Not wanting to deal with culturally offensive shite isn't the same as wanting to destroy someone's life because you disagree with their opinion. Middle, left, and right in America is how it used to be before the Tea Party. Yeah, I got to agree with you there. Yeah, it's become very, very hard to be moderate and say, hey, look, there's another solution here, you know. And that's the other risk that I run on my channel. The moment I seem like I'm spouting right rhetoric or left rhetoric, I get all these people who dogpile on top of it and feel like that justifies them spouting all sorts of horrible shit that I don't agree with. I have a habit of liking and hearting comments on my channel because I've read them. That's me acknowledging I've seen you, and the heart represents I have read your comment. It doesn't mean that I support what you said. If I don't give you a heart, that is me basically saying I don't acknowledge what you, especially if I've responded to it and I haven't hearted the comment. That means I don't agree with what you're saying and I don't like what you just said. But the heart doesn't mean I'm on board with it and this represents me. It's just a method that I have for keeping track of the comments, and so people know that I have read their comment directly, even if I haven't responded to it. I do respond to a shitload of comments on my channel, but their comments are not my views. My views are right down the middle. Thanks, Bilbo. If Overlord Ao is the overgod of the crystal sphere housing Faerun, do other crystal spheres also have their own overgods, and if so, are any named? Or is Ao the overgod of other spheres? As far as we know, AO was not part of Ed Greenwood's original view of how the Forgotten Realms sphere would operate. In fact, I don't even know if Forgotten Realms was a sphere in the first place. Spelljammer came much later than Ed Greenwood's development of Forgotten Realms. So there are stars and things like that in his cosmology originally. So AO was kind of shoved onto it. And it's never really been very well described. Apparently there is some outer greater force which is much larger than AO, and there's some greater multiversal politics going on, but it's never been developed any further. It's just one of those mysteries like the Dark Powers and Ravenloft. Also, other spheres, no mention of overgods in those whatsoever. So AO is the only one that we've ever been made aware of in any of the crystal spheres, and we don't know whether AO has got any influence anywhere else. Just don't know. So it's a narrative conceit. It's something that sort of got imposed on the setting by executives. So while it's kind of AO is there to stay because he's inserted into the storyline of very important world events in Faerun, overgods are not a cosmological constant. We don't know. Thanks to all. SGWs are too busy paving the road to hell with their good intentions by following the rule of treat others the way you want to be treated. I ascribe to the rule of treat others the way they want to be treated. So let's not call them social justice warriors anymore. Let's call them cancel cultureites. Cancellers, outrage mobs, mobsters. So they don't have good intentions. That's the thing. They're being very aggressive to people, and they're looking for excuses to be aggressive to people. They're looking for a mandate where everyone around them tells them it's perfectly fine to call this person horrible fucking things and do horrible things to them because they have a golden ticket to do horrible things to another person in the name of what? Social justice, whatever they put their name, whatever they call it, whatever mandate they've been given by their community. And it's not okay. It's bullying. It's horrible. It's racist. It's nasty behavior. You're not a dog. Exactly. I'm a conservative Democrat. I catch shit from damn near everyone. Yeah. So, yeah. Particularly people who are new to my channel, like people who are fans of larger YouTube channels that come over to me because they've seen me in their recommendations because they watch a lot of D&D videos, and they'll come over and they've got a real axe to grind, and I can see them a mile off, and they don't understand the hearts and stuff that I use in the channel and the way that I respond to my community and stuff, and the fact that when they are commenting on my videos and they refer to me in the third person, I'm going to point that out. It's like, you're in my comments section and you're talking about me in the third person. I'm reading their comment, dude, and I'm going to respond to it. Yeah, your biased media over there is quite fascinating. Anyway, I better go because I'm sweating my ass off in the room here because I have to turn all my fans and air conditioning off so you can hear me without whoosh going in the background. Thanks, Jonathan. In theory, what personality would a Warforged have if they were made from the World Tree Yggdrasil instead of metal? I don't think it would make a huge difference because they kind of are made of wood as the muscle fibre of their bodies anyway. So it's alchemically infused wood fibres with metal framework and skeleton. So an endo and exoskeleton with a wood framework that makes the muscle fibers essentially. It's kind of like if any of you remember BattleTech, those units had muscle myelin like fibers and stuff which drove their robotic limbs and things, and they had constant problem with overheating from those myelin fibers. So if you blew the heat sinks off a giant robot, it would shut down its muscular system, so its motive system. As an American, I say the thing that I find inconceivable is that you Kiwis gave the right of search and seizure to your volunteer police force. Yeah, people have got some strange ideas of what New Zealanders' civil rights and stuff are like. It's really like we've got a very moderate police force that is well trained and pays very close attention to the social side of it as well. So our cops don't walk around with guns. For one thing, they don't walk around with guns strapped to them all the time. They'll have tasers and stuff, and they've got anti-stab vests, but they don't have sidearms. And they have a set of rules that they follow, just like every police force, in regards to search and seizure and stuff like that. Like one of the things I hear that people are quite outraged about is if you get a gun license, you're supposed to have a setup on your property where your guns are stored safely, and the police come interview you before giving you a gun license, and they come round and inspect your property to make sure that you have the facilities to store your guns safely. So they come onto your property, into your house, and check that you have what you're supposed to have. And Americans are like, they come onto your property and look through your stuff? Like, yeah. Because everybody wants everyone to be safe in regards to firearms. It's in everyone's best interest that we do that, because it's logical that you store your firearms safely, so they don't get stolen by ne'er-do-wells who are breaking into your property, or don't get messed with by kids, and things. So yeah, we don't have a problem with that. But like, Americans have this almost toxic obsession with freedom. Freedom without responsibility is toxic freedom. It's like, I do whatever I want. I'm going to shoot a gun through this building, because nobody can stop me. And you just killed somebody. Well, it was manslaughter because I didn't intend to kill him. That's toxic freedom. Freedom without responsibility. Anyway, we've gone well. It's not just D&D. It was a very non-D&D podcast, live stream this week. Stop, or I'll say stop again. I mean, when you think about it, in a small country of 4 million people, where somebody flees from the police officer, it's in the best interest of the police officer to just like take notes, check the CCTV footage, license plate, etc. Find out who that person is related to, who knows them in the community, and eventually track them down when they're sitting in front of the TV in their track pants and Huggy and Ugg boots, and arrest them then. Don't go chasing them through the community. It's pointless. Just track them down afterwards. So much easier. So less stress. Anyway, that's me. Next week, rifts. Yep, some more rifts. For sure. If anybody has any specific questions about rifts, like do you want to hear about Psystalkers and Dog Boys, Emperor Prozac, Triax, New German Republic, Rifts Japan, whatever you like. A toxic obsession with freedom is the stupidest phrase ever uttered. If you didn't get what I'm saying, then you don't get what I'm saying. I couldn't explain it any simpler. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe I can. Let me drool that on the keyboard for you. I have rights, and my rights supersede your rights. Souls in D&D? Yeah, I've talked a little bit about that. I have the right to walk down the street with a bazooka. I mean, maybe you do. In a perfect world, everybody should be able to walk around with a bazooka. But, accidents happen. And, of course, people drink. You trolled a Trump early. Nice. Show me your war face. I just watched that the other day. Okay, everybody. Time for me to go. I've said enough. Perhaps too much. Is there a ban on sharp sticks in this country? Uh, See, in the US, you have the right to carry a bazooka with a permit. In New Zealand, people can make bazookas in their backyard because we're real smart. Because nobody ever told us we can't make our own bazookas. It's like, yeah, it doesn't look too hard. Just put a small explosive device with a discrete combustive mechanism for propulsion and an explosive warhead with an impact trigger. Piece of piss, mate. I'll knock it out by Friday. Get a man in? Nah, I'll do it myself, mate. What are you up to, you blouse? Okay. See you later, everyone.